All right, let's jump right in with this deep dive. We're heading down to the U.S. Mexico border. Things are pretty tense down there, especially with Trump back in office.
Yeah, definitely seems like round two for the immigration debate.
It sure does. And Vice President JD Vance is right in the thick of it. He just visited the border pushing for, well, some pretty tough immigration policies.
Sounds like a good time to check in on what's going on.
Exactly. We've got a couple of articles here, one from CBS News and another from the Associated Press. Honestly, some of this stuff is pretty intense, seeing how it affects everyday people.
You're right, these policies always sound so abstract until you hear about the actual people involved.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's interesting. This whole visit really shows you how the Trump administration wants to handle immigration. They're calling it a whole government approach.
Whole government. So it's not just like Border Patrol anymore.
Right. It's way beyond that now. We're talking Department of Defense, the Director of National Intelligence, even the military's involved.
Whoa, okay, so what does that actually look like in practice?
Well, for one, the CBS article talks about how they're using military planes for deportation flights.
Military planes. Seriously?
Yeah, and get this, they're even sending some immigrants to Guantanamo Bay.
Wait, Guantanamo? You mean like the Guantanamo? The one for terrorism suspect?
Yeah, that's the one.
That seems kind of extreme, no?
Yeah, you can say that again. It's definitely raising some eyebrows. A lot of people are worried about the implications. Like, are we treating immigration like a national security threat now? It's a slippery slope.
It's definitely a huge shift in how we view immigration. And it sounds like Vance is totally on board with this tougher approach. The articles mention how he was basically praising Trump's policies and even pushing for new laws, to tighten border security even more.
Oh, absolutely. He even specifically mentioned that illegal border crossings have supposedly dropped and said it was because of the administration.
But hold on, didn't the article say that others are saying that it's not just because of Trump's policies, right?
Yeah.
Like they were pointing to other factors too.
Right. They mentioned things like increased enforcement in Mexico and even some of those asylum restrictions from the Biden era.
Okay, so there are other things going on that could be contributing to the decline in crossings. It's not just a like one-to-one Trump did this, therefore this happened kind of thing.
Yeah, it's always more complicated than that, right? I mean, immigration's a complex issue. There are so many factors at play.
For sure.
But, I mean, the administration's stance is clear. They're taking a hard line on this, no doubt about it. And Vance's visit was all about promoting that.
Right, so it wasn't all just speeches and press conferences. I mean, Vance actually went to the border, right, like to see things for himself.
He did. He visited a place called Shelby Park in Eagle Pass, Texas.
Shelby Park.
Yeah, it's an interesting spot. See, it was actually taken over by the Texas governor Abbott from the feds.
Oh, wow, seriously, what happened there?
Well, there were some disagreements about how the border should be managed. Abbott's known for his, let's just say, his strong stance on immigration.
Right, right. So this park is like a slash point almost between state and federal authorities.
Yeah, pretty much. It really shows how tense things are.
Got it. So while Vance was down in Texas, did he actually get to talk to any normal people, the folks actually living in these border towns?
Yeah, the AP article mentions he talked to this veteran, Dennis Charlton, lives in Eagle Pass. He was pretty supportive of Trump and Vance, said he's seen less smuggling on his property since they've been in office.
That's interesting. I mean, it makes the whole issue feel less theoretical, right? You can see how it affects real people's lives.
Definitely. But of course, not everyone feels the same way. It's a complex issue, and there are always multiple perspectives. We can dive into that a little later.
For sure. For sure. Okay, so we've got those personal stories, but what about the bigger economic picture? Did these articles mention anything about how all this is affecting businesses and trade?
Yeah, they did. One of the most impactful things Trump's done is those 25% tariffs he put on Mexican imports.
Oh, right, the tariffs. Those caused a lot of controversy back when they were first announced. So what's the administration saying about them now? Why are they still in place?
Well, Vance is calling them a favor to Mexico.
A favor?
Yeah, a favor. He says they're designed to help Mexico fight the cartels, basically putting pressure on them to take action.
Huh. A favor? That's certainly one way to put it. I'm sure not everyone sees it that way, though, especially the businesses getting hit with those tariffs.
Oh, yeah. There's been pushback, for sure. A lot of American and Mexican businesses are saying they're actually hurting and that it's just making things worse between the two countries.
Right. So we've got the tariffs, this whole government thing, even Guantanamo's in the mix now. What else is the administration doing to crack down on the border? Are there, like, actually troops stationed there now?
There are, yeah. The CBS article said something like 6,500 troops have been sent to the border.
6,500. Wow, that's a lot. So what are they actually doing there?
Mostly monitoring and detection, they said, not really directly interacting with migrants.
So more like extra eyes and ears, using tech and surveillance.
Exactly. But, I mean, it's still a pretty strong signal, The administration's serious about this border security thing.
Right, right. Although I'm sure some people see it as a little over the top.
Right.
Like, maybe it's just making things more tense.
Oh, definitely. Some critics are saying it's like an unnecessary show of force. Maybe even creating a more, militarized feel down there.
Yeah, I can see that. It's a far cry from how Biden handled things, that's for sure. Remember how they were all about addressing the root causes of immigration? Like, wasn't Vice President Harris working on improving things in Central America so people wouldn't feel like they had to leave?
Yeah, that was a big part of their approach, a more proactive approach, you could say. Tackling things like poverty and violence and corruption, that kind of stuff.
They saw that as the key, right? Like, fix the problems at the source and you won't have so many people trying to come here.
Yeah. Exactly.
So, okay, on one side, you've got Trump's administration. They're all about strengthening the border, making it harder to get in. And then you've got Biden. They're focused on fixing the problems that are pushing people out of their home countries. Those seem like pretty different strategies, right?
Oh, yeah. It's like two totally different philosophies. Trump's all about enforcement, deterrence, sending that message that illegal immigration's not going to fly. They see it as a national security issue, a sovereignty thing.
And Biden saw it more as a humanitarian crisis, like something that needed to be addressed at the source.
Right. Diplomacy, foreign aid, working with other countries in the region to stabilize things.
Okay, so two very different approaches. And I'm guessing they both have their pluses and minuses. But what does this all mean for people on the ground? Like, how does it affect folks who actually live in those border towns or people who are hoping to come to the U.S.?
Well, for people living in places like Eagle Pass, it means more security, maybe more military presence, a bigger focus on enforcement. Whether that's good or bad, well, it depends, right?
Yeah, some people probably feel safer. Some probably feel uneasy. Depends on your perspective.
For sure. And then there's the economic side of things. We talked about the tariffs. Those can affect prices,
Yeah.
mess with supply chains, maybe even lead to job losses. It's something that affects both sides of the border.
For those trying to immigrate legally or seeking asylum, all this could make it even harder, right?
Definitely a concern. Trump's focus on enforcement could make it tougher for people to navigate the system, even if they're doing things the right way. Raises some serious questions about human rights and due process.
Wow. It's a lot to think about. I mean, it's not just about immigration, is it? It affects the economy, national security, even the relationship between the U.S. and Mexico.
You got it. It's complicated stuff, no easy answers. And as things keep changing and people keep debating it, it's so important to stay informed, look at different sides, really think about the best way forward.
We've definitely covered a lot of ground here. I feel like I have a much better grasp on how complicated all of this is and how much it affects people's lives.
Yeah, it's definitely something we need to keep talking about, for sure. Like, we've seen how these policies, they affect everyone, people on both sides of the border, the folks living in those towns like Eagle Pass and the people trying to get to the U.S. And, of course, there's the whole economic angle, too.
It's easy to lose sight of the human side of things when you're just talking about policy, But then you hear stories like that veteran we were talking about earlier, Dennis Charlton, and it all becomes much more real.
Right, exactly. He felt safer after Trump's policies were put in place. But, we got to remember that not everyone feels the same way.
Right, for sure.
There are people who might have family members who are, undocumented, or maybe they're worried about all the extra military around. It's going to hit everyone differently.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that there's no easy fix here. Every decision has consequences, and it's tough to get it right for everyone.
That's the thing, though. Both of these approaches we've been talking about, like the enforcement-focused one and the root causes one, they both have the same goal in the end.
Yeah.
Reducing illegal immigration.
Okay, I see what you mean. They're just going about it in totally different ways.
Yeah, one's trying to make it harder to get into the country, and the other's trying to, fix the reasons why people are leaving in the first place.
Right, right.
It makes you wonder if maybe a more, balanced approach might be the answer, maybe combine some enforcement with, investing in development and working with those countries.
Yeah, there's got to be some creative solutions out there somewhere. And I guess it's up to us to stay informed, have these conversations and make sure our leaders are actually doing what's best for everyone.
Well said. And that's why these deep dives are so important. They get us thinking, get us looking at things from different angles.
Definitely. We've covered a lot today. It's been really eye-opening to see just how complicated all this is
Mm.
and, like, the real effects it has on people.
I agree. But hey, this is just the beginning, right? There's always more to learn, more perspectives to think about, more to talk about.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into U.S. immigration policy. Keep digging, keep asking questions. See you next time.